This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, miniatures, and paints, discount prices at miniaturemarket.com. One of the best things about this channel is we're not a channel that is going to change the course of Mighty Rivers, that, you know, somebody gives us a game and we're going to change we're going to introduce it to people and people are going to run out and buy things. We're a very small channel that really has a sense of caring, and you know, it's a wonderful group of people that love to spend time with each other. That's one of the things I can boast, and I think that's one of the very few things I can boast. Well, we were having a discussion. I was speaking about some disappointment that I unfortunately have gone through and suffer through, and one of the things I always like to do is pull back the curtain. And we were talking about games and music and things like that, because God knows what we talk about here at Rob's Tabletop World. It's supposed to be a tabletop gaming thing, but we go off on pop culture and all kinds of things. That's what we do. You know, we lose track of what we're doing and end up doing 50 other things, which is good in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, it's not entertaining to the board game masses. Not a problem for me. But a question that came up was, if you had to, you know, the games on your shelf are things that bring a lot of memories. And what are some of the memories that you have throughout your life of playing board games? Does a game pinpoint a specific moment in time and things like that? And for me, it tells the story of my life in a lot of ways. You know, certain games, whether it was Candyland when I was a young boy and playing, we would get all excited and set it up, and the person that was babysitting us would play with us, and we would try to get her to play as many games as we can. She was just such a sweetheart that, you know, you always wanted to be around her, and I remember her because of that game. You know, as I got older and we start talking more about serious board games, I start thinking about the games that have affected me throughout my life, and things that have stood out. And if I had to make this soundtrack or this track of my life with games that meant something, what would they be? Well, I'm going to give you a bunch of them, and I would love to hear your opinions on thinking of memories of certain games that have brought this just incredible, you know, that have made such incredible memories in your life, that are there and stamp in your existence the things that you love so much and why you stay in board gaming. So I would love to hear your things. I'm going to give you a bunch of mine, and we're going to do that right now. Early on, when I was very young, the Milton Bradley Americana series and some of their games, because those were the only games that when we were young that we can get our hands on. And things like Carrier, which I thought was the greatest game. We played it wrong, but you know, later on when I figured it out, my friend would cheat any way he can, if you want to call him a friend. And we really loved that game, and we would play that. Skirmish, which was another one of those just fantastic games, 1776, and just a simple system of trying to win out. And we played it a few years ago, and it just brought back so many great memories, broadsides. But then I started to get into more things that were more a little more harder, or more advanced. I'll never forget being at camp. I was teaching pottery at a camp and learning about Dungeons and Dragons for the first time, and that just being the end all be all for me, because that's where I really cemented my foot in fantasy dungeon crawls and things like that. Computer games really help that, but when it comes to everything, it really builds around the original D&D series, having all those books, which I still have somewhere. Wargaming, as much as I love that, Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader, Tactics 2, early on, Gettysburg, how can you forget that? Battlecry I didn't learn till later on in life. But, a lot of these games that when you would walk into the store, you just sat in fascination of. Starship Troopers was another one that I can remember. A ton of, we were getting a huge snowstorm, and me and my brothers just saying, boy, we're going to be snowed in, and we weren't going to be able to go to school, and then just getting Starship Troopers and saying, okay, and you just see the tons of snow coming down. I think we got like 2 feet that day, but just setting up and having a whole bunch of snacks and just, by the fire and just playing that for hours upon hours upon hours was just has a special place in its heart for me. Then there are games that I just have emotional connection to because they tell a story. And Dungeon Quest, the old original Dungeon Quest from GW. It's a game that has bounced around. It's a game I've had for quite some time. I have all the figures painted. And when we first started the channel, we got a letter from a gentleman that his daughter was a huge fan, and he was going through some tough times, and he really loved the game. And I sent it to him, my original copy, and I said, well, you know what? It's okay. I don't have to have this anymore. And then, some years later, I got a note back from the gentleman saying his daughter had passed, and he sent the game back. So now that game is just never going to go anywhere. It's just going to stay here. And because, how much it moved me, and how much he thanked me for sending that, and how much fun he had with her with it. And every time I look at that game, I think of that story. It's a story that's part of my life, and that's what these games do. Also, on the same thing happened, kind of, only a little bit different with Secrets of the Lost Station. A girl that was terminally ill. I had sold. I had 2 copies, and I sold the extra copy I had in an auction to raise some money for charity. And the guy was very disappointed that he couldn't bid and get enough for it after all he was going through. And I apologized, and then he explained the situation, and I sent my copy. And unfortunately, I got a letter that they had a lot of fun with it, and it meant a lot, and then unfortunately she had passed. So, all these things mean things. And then, Chris sending me a new version of it, which I have to thank Everything Epic Games for what they've done. There's been a lot of games that I've had that have meant something to me, and of course, we get some. We really try to help a lot in any way we can in charities, and those games have gone out. Agents of Mayhem is one that as much as I loved painting it and I wanted to really showcase it here, somebody couldn't afford it and was going through a tough time, and so we sent it out. We try to help, and that's what some of these games do. They go and they're here for a while, and then we try to get them to other people so they can have experiences in their lives. And there's just, I look around these shelves and the stories that are told here. When you talk about talisman, and how much it means to my family, and how it's one of the few games that we will play as a family. It's not the greatest game in the world, but we will play it until we can't see. It's just something that means something to this family. I look at Fallen Lands, and I think of the guys there that have worked so hard. They worked for 10 years to get this game off the ground, and then, you know, it just turns out to be this game that means so much to me. And I'll never forget Sam and I meeting those guys, and we've just been friends ever since. Things I've done with Sam, Blood Bowl. You know, Blood Bowl is one of the most, for me, meaningful games. My wife getting me my first copy of it, having to send away from Canada because there was no way you can get your hands on it. And this is going back a lot of years. She hunted one down and somehow found a way to get it. And I'll never forget her getting that for me, and how much it meant to me, and how much that game means to me. My son and I playing, me and my friends playing, tournaments and championships, and how much certain teams meant to me. All these things just build a story in my life. The Europa. When I think of Europa, I think of Gary from Fathers and Sons. One of the last times I saw him, he introduced me to the Europa system. And he used to write in the magazine, and I would come and try to learn the game from him. Each and every week I'd go up to Father and Sons, you know, take my lunch hour and pop in there when we were up in Connecticut. And then I remember getting in my car and seeing him playing with his son. They were just playing something, and his son was very young, I think 4 or 5, maybe even 6. I was real bad, but he was on his knees, and his dad, you know, Gary just sitting there and playing with him. And that was the last time I ever saw him. So Second Front in my Europa collection means so much to me because of that visual in my head. The last time I saw him, he was doing exactly what the title of his store said, Fathers and Son. And how much he meant to the hobby and to that system. Just wonderful, wonderful memories as I look around, and I can't part with this stuff, a lot of this stuff, because of the memories. Space Hulk, you know, that has so much. And what I really am looking for is, as I've told you my stories, I would love to hear some of your stories, some of the things that mean things to you, some of the things that have moved you, whether it, you know, for me, Warhammer, my first introduction into some miniature stuff, along with some of the Ral Partha stuff, and those winters just painting away, and just it's too cold to do anything outside, let's go take a Saturday and just play in my basement. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experiences, and I look forward to hearing yours. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say as far as games that have moved you. What has made an impression in your lives? Okay, what stories does your board games tell? I look forward to hearing yours. And as always, like and subscribe, and until next time, it's your old pal Rob saying, we'll see you soon. This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, miniatures, and paints, discount prices at miniaturemarket.com.